500 years of football expertise and the future of the game. Powered by SūmerSports. Come together. Breaking down the big board with the guys that were in the room. Joining us on the evaluation is former GM of the Oakland Raiders, as well as former safety for the New York Giants, Mike Mayock. Also on the panel is SūmerSports senior evaluator and former director of college scouting for the Houston Texans, Mike Maccagnan. We're bringing it all together with the most sophisticated sports technology ever engineered. This is the evaluation Underdogs. For every 5-star recruit on national TV, there's a kid grinding in the shadows, waiting for someone to notice. Underdogs come with rough edges, raw traits, and real hunger. Some scouts see projects, others see gold. Maybe their numbers are small school inflated. Maybe the competition was weak. Maybe nobody's giving them a real look. But sometimes, the next superstar is hiding in plain sight. And for the teams that find them, they change everything. Welcome to the evaluation. I'm your host, Atur Ewan, and today we have a very special episode. We're talking about the underdogs with high upside. And I'm pleased to be joined by Mike Maccagnan and Mike Mayock.
Hey.
Gentlemen, how we doing?
Good.
Mike, you had the chance to sit down with an underdog that you have a very special relationship with.
You know, I did, and it was really a joy for me to welcome Maxx Crosby into the show. He was a 4th-round pick of the then Oakland Raiders, and he shared his incredible story with us from underdog to top dog. You know, I want to go back to, what was it, Colleyville High School?
Yep, Colleyville Heritage.
How did you end up getting from Texas to Eastern Michigan without the Texas A&Ms and the Texases saying, we got to have Maxx Crosby?
It goes back to my junior year. I was a linebacker, and I was shorter, stockier, not twitchy at all. I was a late bloomer, to say the least. So I was like in this weird spot because I wasn't a linebacker. I was starting to get a little bit taller. And then a few months later goes, and all of a sudden I sprout to almost 6'5". So I went from like 6'1" to 6'5", and we had a new coaching staff. They come in and they see me and they're like, you're not playing middle linebacker. There's no, you know what I mean? You're too damn tall and big. So they literally told me the first day, like, just listen to us and we're going to get you a D1 offer. I'm like, perfect. I'll do whatever you want me to do, whatever that is. And they were like, we want you to play DN and we want you to play tight end. I was like, perfect. So Brad McCaslin was the D coordinator for Eastern at the time. And he came down to Texas and was like, who the hell is this big-ass kid? He's, you know, almost 6'5", he can move, he's catching the ball, all this, you know, all this stuff. And he told me, he was like, let's stay in contact. He gave me his card. And so in my head, I'm like, I have no offers right now, and Eastern Michigan is a D1 school. I don't care that they've had, you know, a lot of struggles and things like that. Like, I just want to play D1. I want to have a chance to play D1. And so I was all in on going to Eastern. Like, my mind was set. Like, whatever I got to do, I got to get an offer from Eastern. And then they invited me out to their camp, and it was like late June, like June 28th, something like that. I went out to the camp in Ypsilanti. Me and my mom, my brother, my sister, we all drove in a van from Texas all the way up to Michigan to go to the camp. Swear to God, all packed in this freaking car. And so we went up there, and it was the longest camp I've ever done. Like, I had done a couple FCS schools, Central Arkansas, Abilene Christian, and I was strictly doing tight end stuff, and I got no offer. I go to Eastern, I did both at that camp. I did all the D-line stuff, and then I went and ran to the other field and did all the tight end stuff. I'm like, I'm getting an offer no matter what. And I ended up doing great. Like, I had a great day. They had some guys that were already committed to Eastern that were at the camp and competing. So we're doing one-on-ones, and there's guys out there that are already committed to Eastern, and I'm frying them. So in my head, I'm like, they got to offer me. I'm like, these are the guys they already offered a scholarship. I'm like, they got to offer me. And he comes up, he's like, hey, you know, we got a couple more guys we got to talk to. It's okay if you guys want to leave, and, you know, we'll give you a call tomorrow, whatever. I'm like, I'm not leaving. Like, we'll meet in person. Like, I'm not leaving this camp. We drove all the way across the country to get an offer. We waited, and it was late, like literally late at night. And me and my mom went in there with Coach Creighton, who's the head coach and still the head coach to this day. And he gave me my first offer, and that was it. I ended up committing like 2 weeks later. You know, we got locked in, and it was incredible.
You get done a very productive career at Eastern. You declare for the draft and get invited to the Combine. What are your memories of the Combine?
That was one of the most incredible experiences, but one of those experiences you never want to do again. Like, I checked it off. I'm like, yeah, I'm tapped out by the time you leave. But I truly enjoyed that moment because it was strenuous. And it's like the conversation we had. I'll never forget it. When I signed my contract as a rookie, when I got there, you're like, Max, I know your past. I know you've been through some shit. You've done some self-inflicted. Like, you need to grow up and you need to be, a professional. And this, like, those are the conversations that I had to really go at. Like, every team right out the bat was asking those type of questions. And, Vrabel was standing over me, like, literally bullying me, like, just talking crap and like, what, you don't know how to control your liquor? What, do you have a problem? You do have this? And at the time, I'm like, I messed up. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to say. Like, I just owned it. You know what I mean? And they respected that, I felt like. And I went through a lot, and that combine experience, I knew, like, when I declared early, like, literally everybody in my circle besides Rachel and CJ, they were the only ones that were like, we were all on the same page. Like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to declare early. I'm going to go kill the combine. I'm going to be a top 100 pick. And I went out there and I crushed it at the combine. I was top in majority of the categories, 5'10", the vertical, broad jump.
And you did kill it at the combine. At 6'5", 255, you ran in the mid to low 4.6s. You jumped 36-inch on the vert, 10 feet 2 on the broad, short shuttle 4.13, and the 3-cone 6.89. They're wide receiver numbers.
Yeah.
You're 6'5", 255, running the 3-cone sub 7. I almost fell over, and it kind of reinforced what I used to say about you. You bend like Gumby, and I don't even know if you know who Gumby is, but that was one of the. I know. You've used that trait, the bend trait. How does your ability to bend fit into your game?
I mean, you guys definitely saw it because I remember you mentioning it right out the gate, like after watching my film and when I first got drafted. You and Coach Gruden, like, always are talking about he's so slippery and he's bendy, he bends weird and bends like Gumby and things like that. Because if you watch my film in college, I was doing stuff in the run game and getting high TFL numbers back then like I am now. You know what I mean? There's stuff like, I don't just set the edge every play. I just look at it as another opportunity to go make a play and wreck a drive. And there's 3 different ways to beat a block. You can either go around them, you can go inside, or you can go right through them. And if you have the ability to do all 3 of those, it sets up your counter. So, like, the first snap, if I'm getting off and punching someone in the face, he's going to come out the ball next time hard as hell trying to bring that type of, energy back to me. So I know that in my head, I'm already anticipating him being over-aggressive, and then that's where I slip him and go make a TFL. It's like the inside, like, in my mind, like, I'm always thinking, I'm trying to think of how I'm going to set him up, whether it's the run game, pass game, screens, whatever they're trying to do. I'm trying to be a step ahead. So you have to be slippery and you have to be bendy, and it doesn't just happen by God-given ability. Like, I stretch every single night. I do all the extra cardio. I do all the, the maintenance work on my body, all the little details from foot, like, little foot exercises I do every single night, 365. It's like little things like that you can work on. So I feel like that all ties together, but it really, at the end of the day, everything matters. Like, you don't just do a workout. You don't just do a pass rush. You don't just practice just to get through the practice and, okay, we got done with practice. Like, no, I go out there with an intention, and I want to be detailed in everything I do from every drill because I know it translates to the game. And that's something that I feel like, over time has translated into me making more and more and more plays. And that alone is like a big win. So, like, every offseason, that's how I look at it. Like, just how can I get better and how can I be a better version of myself?
I want to go from there into something you referenced a little while ago, which was the sobriety issue, okay? And you're pretty amazing the way you're out there trying to help people. I remember vividly, to use your word, vividly, your agent CJ called me. And he's like, we got to get Max into a facility. It's gotten out of control, and I want your word that the Raiders will be behind this. And I was like, dude, we're all in on this. Max is special. He's different. What ultimately pushed you there?
What pushed me to get there was me being tired of being tired. I remember waking up in the morning by myself. I was this is the first house I ever bought, and I thought, like, at the time, like, it was like a $500,000 house. I thought it was Tony Montana's house. For me, I was like, this is the greatest thing. I have my own place. And I was just coming off a runner-up for Rookie of the Year. Just had a great rookie year. I have money for the first time in my life. I got all these things, and from the outside, people are thinking, "Oh my God, we love Max, and he's got all his things together. He works so hard, and da 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 da." And the reality is, I was at the lowest of lows. I was out of control. I couldn't stop drinking. I know I'm an addict. Like I didn't, growing up, like I knew the first time I took a drink, like I was in love. You know what I mean? And that's the reality of it, and that's who I am. And it's it's crazy because a lot of people are terrified to take that first step. And that's the biggest thing, especially in the 12 steps, like it's just admitting you got a problem. But once you do it, like it feels like the world just falls off your shoulders. I felt like I could fly after that. Like I remember going into rehab, and truly those 30 days, like were some of the best times I had in my life. I remember it so clearly, and like the experience that I had there. Like people think of rehab and they're like, "Oh my God, you were in rehab?" I was like, "Yeah, it was freaking awesome. I loved it. It was amazing." I didn't have a phone. I could only get on the phone. I could only make phone calls at like a 30-minute window, middle of the day, once a day. I was with 8 strangers in LA, like something I'm so different than what I'm used to and what I've experienced. And it was one of the best experiences I ever had. So honestly, that was the first step for me, was just waking up in the morning. I remember looking myself in the mirror. Like I literally woke up like in a pool of sweat, and I was so like, I felt so terrible. And I just remember looking in the mirror. I was like, I don't even recognize myself. Like I was miserable, and I was at a point where everybody else thought I had everything figured out and I was doing great. And I was like, I need to get help. Like this is going to end one or two ways. Like I'm not going to be here anymore, or I'm going to get in trouble. Like one of the two if I don't stop. So that was it. I remember so vividly. I woke up, I'm by myself in this house, walked into my bathroom, just looked myself in the mirror. I was just like shaking my head. Like, I was embarrassed to like look at myself.
I remember visiting you, and all you talked about was, I want to get out of here. This is so hard. It's so alt-right. Do you remember that? Do you remember the beginning of it, where you kind of—
The very beginning, yeah.
You kind of wanted to get out of there, and because you knew that you were allowed to say, I'm done here, all I got to do is walk out of here. To my memory, I thought it was an immensely brutal thing for you to be able to get through those first couple weeks.
There's no mistake about it. It wasn't just like I stepped in and it was amazing immediately.
Right.
I didn't want to go at all. I was like, hell no, I don't care. I'm not going. I waited a whole day, and Scotty just sat there and looked at me on my couch for a freaking whole day. I'm like, I'm not leaving. Like, I'm not going to that damn place. Like, I got plans. I got this going on. And he's like, I'm not leaving. So, like, in my head, I was like, no, I refuse. And then once I went, and the first couple days go by, I'm like so embarrassed, and it was just, you have all those feelings, and you're finally like getting sober and thinking clearly. I was like, what is going on? Like, how did I end up here? And then as time went on, and you start meeting and building those relationships in there, even though it was quick, like it happened fast because we're all living together, doing the same things, and just opening up. And then I started getting calls from, you, from Gruden, and you guys fully supported me. Action is everything to me. For me, like, that's the one thing that I can't live with, is like having people around me that talk a certain way, and yeah, I'm about this, and I'm, even from teammates to whoever it is, like, oh, yeah, I'm a hard worker, I'm da-da-da-da-da, and then your actions don't back that up. You guys showed me at my darkest time, when I felt like I was at the lowest of lows, and I was below scum. Like, I felt like an ant, and you guys had my back. So that's action. You know what I mean? You guys in my lowest moment had my back, and that is why, like, forever I'm indebted to you guys, and that's something I'll never forget. And that's life in general too. Like, just people, majority of people in your life come and go, but like those core people that truly have your back, those are the people you're locked in with forever, because your actions are it's either one or two ways. You either got my back or you don't. And when you're there, when you guys didn't at that point, like, it wasn't like I was some superstar at that point or whatever, but I was going through it and I was struggling. I was a young kid, and you guys didn't even hesitate. Like, no, we got Max's back. We love Max. Like, that meant more to me than anything. So just having you guys check in with me at that time was like, it was really special.
What's cool for me from afar to watch is I feel like you've channeled your addiction into being a great husband, a great father, and a great football player. One of the things I love is listening to you talk about your craft. Okay, you got into it earlier and you lit up like a Christmas tree talking about hand use and setting the guy up and first snap of the game and coming heavy on him. If you could imagine that this is going to a whole bunch of 7th and 8th graders and high school players, if you could look at them and give them some advice, what would be good for these younger guys to do to get better as football players?
You have to have a mindset where you can't, like, that you never have it figured out. Like, there's always something you can get better at. When you have that mindset that no matter what the success and the outcome and the results are, all that is irrelevant. If you win, if you lose, if you get 2 sacks, if you get 0 sacks, you still got to show up the next day, and you have a choice to get better or you get worse. There's no staying the same. The results come from the process, and the process is the most important thing. So that's really what I would say to the young guys is, like, you have to find a routine that works for you. You have to understand your body and what you're good at and maximize that, and then start going. Because people see Von Miller, they see me, or they see Myles Garrett, and like, oh, I want to do that move. I'm gonna start being a swipe guy because Von Miller does it. Or, but some people just don't have the body to do that. But if they might have a great spin move, but not do it because they think they want to be like Von Miller. For me, that's what Von told me when I was young, and it stuck in my head because it's the answer to the same question you're asking right now. He was like, you don't got to do what I do. He was like, I'm 6'2", 245. Like, you're 6'5", 255. You're a whole different body. Like, you got to figure out what works for you. All the glory and stuff comes from the process, and process is the 99%, the shit that gets no glory. And so that's my cheat code, is you got to be consistent every single day.
Listen, I just, to wrap this thing up, aside from a huge thank you and sharing with us all this information, what I hope for you, Max, on the football side, with my heart of hearts, is that you end up leading a team that's really freaking good and has a chance to win it all. Because I know in your heart of hearts, that's what you want.
Winning is all I truly want to do. I'll give up everything to go and win a Super Bowl. I would do anything on this planet to win and be in those positions. And, you know, I've gone through a lot in the league, and you hear sometimes from time to time that it really tests you as a man when you have to hear, like, maybe it's Max, maybe he's not a good leader, maybe he's not as good as this guy, or and those type of things that, like, when it's hard like that and you start hearing the noise a little bit, it's like you could either get mad at the world and go on Twitter and be like, you don't know shit, and get all mad, or you take note of it and let it motivate you. And I know there's a lot of things on my list that have motivated me going into this offseason. I've heard a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things. People don't know the truth about everything that's been going on. That's not, the truth will always reveal itself. And for me, being at peace and being happy and doing and living my truth every day and being with my girls and focus on everyday improvement from physical to mental to emotional across the board, that's going to help me get to that point. And I know at some point, whenever that is, it could be next year, it could be 2 years, I know I'm going to be in a position where I'm winning football games and out there showing the world that I'm one of the best in the world, if not the best at what I do, and leading a team to the promised land and winning a Super Bowl. I don't know if it's going to be next season or the year after or whatever, but I'll do everything in my power to, you know, be in that position, and we'll worry about that when it comes down to it. But right now it's just focused on the day-to-day, and that's not letting the noise creep in. Focus on the details and just improve every day, and that's what I'm gonna keep doing.
You know what? You're the best, brother, and you have no idea how much I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Mike, I'm just so blown away with Max's maturity and in your conversation with him. You really got to see someone who was at his lowest in many ways, and getting to see him shine has been really beautiful.
It tugs at my emotions because on the one hand, it's we're proud, the people in the building that drafted him, very proud of what he's become as a football player, but as a man, going to his wedding, getting to know his wife, you know, being around his family, as an organization standing behind him when he was trying to find sobriety at a very important time in his life, was very important. And I think Max, during that interview, was very open and honest about every stage of his life. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Mike, take us through your first player eval, please.
Okay. So when you go through underdogs, what you find a lot of, there's different types. There's underdogs who are underdogs because of maybe they had issues in college. There's guys that have maybe a slower developmental arc. And as you go through the history of the NFL, there's so many players that pop out that at some point in time were available to anybody else in the NFL, but for whatever reason, they took a different path. So the first player I was going to talk about is Arian Foster from Tennessee. We watched Arian his season prior to coming out, which was 2007. Tennessee went, I think, 10-4. He ran for about almost 1,200 yards. played very well. And then his next year, his senior year, 2008, he had sort of an off year. The other part too, like when he came out, he was not healthy at the combine, so he didn't test at the combine. He did have a pro day, which he ran 4.65, very pedestrian. His numbers weren't exceptionally great. There were sort of mixed reviews from some of the staff, because that happens in college a little bit. So Arian comes into the league. We go through training camp with him. He did a nice job. We didn't think he was quite ready. We put him on our practice roster, and he was on our practice roster until about November of that season. So in theory, 2/3 of the season, he was on the practice roster. And eventually, we elevated him at the end of the season. He ran for about 250 yards, had a big 100-yard game versus New England. So we go through that rookie season with him. The next year, he comes back into training camp. He ends up leading the league in rushing, ran for over 1,600 yards, had another 600 yards of receiving, became literally an all-pro player his second year in the league. And he played for about 7.5 years, had multiple 1,000-yard seasons, was a 2-time all-pro player, I think he went to the Pro Bowl 4 times, was an instrumental player for us. Unfortunately, injuries, he had a back issue, he had an Achilles, kind of cut his career short, like in some cases happens with running backs. But these are sort of the underdogs you look for, and there's sort of a calculated risk with them. So sometimes they're just late bloomers, like a Cameron Wake, who just took time to develop. Arian Foster, who had ability, but we put him in a situation where he could utilize his potential and eventually become a very good player for us.
The cool thing about all that, I think, that you can share a little bit is when you get a player like that and you dig deep like your scouting department did to get him, it's a celebration within the scouts in your building, because that's what you're looking for. Everybody knows the names of the first and second round guys. Nobody knows how you're digging in on these late round guys and undrafted free agents. So one of those guys hits, the entire building gets galvanized. It's pretty cool.
Mike, who's your next underdog?
This is one of my favorite guys, E. And when you watch a lot of tape, like a scout or a GM, you're watching hundreds of tapes every year, hundreds. And I get to a moment every once and then where I kind of go, it's an aha moment for me, because this guy is a little different. And D'Angelo Pons from Indiana, another transfer from JMU, at 5'9", 173, I had a couple aha moments, and I just did more and more tape. And the more I did, the more I fell in love with this young man. 24, he's all Big Ten, okay? For a scout, you're looking for the step up in quality. What does he do? He excels again. This year, 25, all Big Ten. Again, even higher level, 61 tackles, 2 interceptions. He's one of those guys that, from my perspective, is a baller. So let's go through the quick scouting report here. Skill set, twitchy, kind of a sticky man-to-man guy. In my head, I'm thinking nickel. A man and press coverage perspective, I've got very good. Toughness, run support, and tackling, I give him outstanding. Ball skills, very good. Gets his hit, ball seems to find him. He's one of those guys. Willing tackler, so important, especially at that size. And finally, what I have in big letters, and it's in my scouting report, competes. All capitals, competes. Really important, I feel, at the corner position. What are the concerns? Why is he an underdog? Well, he's an underdog because of the size to start with. 5'9", 173 is going to scare a lot of people away, especially early in the draft. Why? Because no matter how sticky he is, there are different ways to separate. One of them is length and one of them is power. But the thing you don't know, unless you really do your homework on this kid, is how smart he is or isn't. Now, he jumps off the tape, football IQ, but when you move a kid inside that's never played there, everything happens more quickly, and you become a part of the run fits, almost like a linebacker, okay? Change of motion, change of your defensive call. All of a sudden, you're going from a C-gap defender to a B-gap defender, and it's like that. Some guys can't handle it. So you hear the fans at home going, we'll just kick him inside. No, we don't just kick him inside. We have a plan for that kid when he gets in our building. The scouts have to agree to it. The coaches have to agree to it. So there's the underdog traits, is the fact that his size is going to scare people. And if you're thinking nickel, it's a position change. So there's two things there. I think he's probably going to go worst case in the 3rd round. And traditionally, he would have gone later than that, but because of what he did at Indiana.
It's interesting, when you find players that are slightly undersized for the position, they have to have qualities, everything else has to offset that.
Correct.
And he doesn't play small. He plays very aggressive, he's extremely instinctive. And you watch him sort of in man off, you watch him in zone. He has all these other traits that are gonna be like, okay, he's going to overcome this because of that. He may give up a little bit being a big man press guy and put hands on people, but at the end of the day, this guy's really, as Mike alluded to, a really good football player.
So let's kick it to our SūmerSports data analyst and football integration lead Sam Bruchhaus for some current underdogs. Sam?
Yeah, with those two underdogs, we got another edge rusher that I think is really interesting because he is a totally modern profiled player. That's because Keyshawn James-Newby out of New Mexico went from Montana Tech. Didn't even know there was a Montana Tech, but shout out to all the alumni there. Then goes to Idaho, then goes to New Mexico and puts up a top trait. His top trait, it is his ability to pass rush while stunting and moving around on the defensive line. I think a team in the middle or late rounds is really gonna enjoy having him on their team. Has a little size concern, 6'2", 244, but as we heard from the guys, you can overcome that with some of those top traits. Analytically, he has a 10 pass rush stunt, and I wanna see what he can do at the next level. It's another guy to look out at. This is a traditional guy, and you don't see too many of these now. You think about Kage Casey out of Boise State. Here's a guy that went 1 year to Boise State, redshirted, stayed his whole career there despite getting a lot of starts. He also has a top tier trait, and that is in sustaining run blocks down the field. What does that mean in terms of the analytics? It means that when we are tracking his evaluation up past 2 seconds into a run, he is still blocking and still improving the outcome of that play. But he still has another blue chip trait, and that's why I think this guy could be someone that people really get excited about because he's also good off the ball. His initial quickness in less than 1 second also really helps that run game. He was helped by Ashton Genty and some of those running backs they had at Boise State for sure, but you can't get it done without an offensive lineman. We've seen these guys jump up before. I think Kage Casey's gonna be the one this year.
Thank you, Sam. Mike, who's your last underdog?
The last guy I have is Dillon Theineman from Oregon. 6 foot, 205, free safety. The other underdogs you come across are guys who, where they start out, they're not necessarily on the radar. They're not highly recruited 5-star players. I like to use the analogy like when we drafted J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt was a 2-star tight end who went to Central Michigan, who believed in himself, walked on at Wisconsin, and then became the player he eventually became. And I'm not necessarily saying this guy's gonna be as good as J.J. Watt was necessarily at his position, but it's that same thing. So first he goes into Purdue, starts as a true freshman, becomes an All-American freshman, All-Conference, has 100+ tackles, highly productive, goes to Oregon this year, becomes an All-American at Oregon, and they play in a different system. They play a scheme that they sort of hybrid him. They move him around, they put him in man coverage situations, they play him in zone, they move him all over the place. And what you really realize, and is sort of how instinctive and competitive and what a good football player this player is. And he's gone from 2 different environments where he's proved himself there. When you do the background on him, you hear sort of the same things like Mike said about Pons. Like, this guy is super smart, cerebral, he's highly competitive, early morning workout guy, does everything possible to make himself a better player. And when you watch him on tape, you see the culmination of all that. He's exceptionally spatially aware, plays very cerebral, maybe, not maybe exceptionally rare qualities, but a really good football player who's really elevated his game.
All right, I'm gonna have to watch him too.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Earlier today, I had a chance to sit down with our friends from the Bootleg football podcast, Brett Kollmann and E.J. Snyder, to hear some more underdogs. EJ, we have a lot of underdogs left to discuss. Who's your first?
My first is Nadame Tucker, the edge from Western Michigan. Guy I really like, 6'3", 250, great pop in his hands. My favorite thing about him is how quickly he defeats blocks. Gets to the offensive lineman, gets those hands down, gets by him. He's got really good quickness, really nice moves, Euro step, arm over, wins immediately on a lot of reps, and defensive coaches are gonna love that.
Brett, who do you have first?
I'm going to go with Gracen Halton. He's a OU defensive tackle, and even though he isn't really allowed to get upfield as much as his athleticism would suggest he could, they play more of a read and react style there. He is so quick at processing blocks. You look at how he took on down blocks from Caden Proctor, despite giving 80 pounds to him, didn't move an inch. Such a quick processor, really athletic in space, very, very underrated player this year.
EJ, what's next?
Bryce Lance for me, wide receiver, North Dakota State University. This is Trey Lance's little brother. He's been there for 3 years, 6'3", 207, great acceleration, good release game at the line, continues to accelerate throughout the rep, but my favorite thing about him is his ability to win at the catch point and all the little things, body position, hand strength, that subtle little shove that nobody's gonna call to get separation. Amazing control around the end zone and the sideline. We've seen it time and again from him. Big-time player, big-time speed, guy that can really take the top off in the passing game.
Brett, what do you have for us?
I'll go the other side of that coin. I got a corner from San Diego State, Chris Johnson. His passer rating allowed when targeted is 15.5. He has ridiculous efficiency when it comes to ball production. 1 out of every 10 targets his way is a pick. 1 out of every 5 targets his way is a PBU. He doesn't have the best speed, I'll say, but he makes up for it with quick feet, fluid hips, outrageous instincts, and he's just so competitive at the catch point. Target him at your own risk.
EJ.
I'll fill out the slate with Robert Henry Jr., running back from UTSA. Shows up a little bit small on the size chart, but I think he plays bigger than that. He's 5'9", measured in just under 200. I'd imagine he'd top 200 at the Combine, but looks bigger and runs bigger on tape. Has ridiculous feet behind the line, good patience, savage cuts, sometimes greater than 90 degrees, and if you let him go, he's gonna score. Didn't get used much in the passing game, but he showed good proficiency when they did throw it his way, and we've seen backs recently succeed with this size profile coming out. So I look for Robert Henry Jr. in the middle rounds as somebody that's gonna upgrade an NFL offense.
Brett, take us home.
How do we like Georgia State receivers? I got Ted Hurst. He's 6'3", $195, big, long, fast, tons of juice. 60% contested catcher, which, believe it or not, is actually above most receivers even in the NFL. Anything over about 52% is considered high end. He's at 60%. He had 15 20-plus yard catches this year in just 11 games. And what I like the most about him is he is experienced against press coverage. Out of everybody in this draft class, Elijah Surratt just passed him in snaps against press in 5 extra games. He just passed him in the Natty and only by 4. He is the 5th most snaps against press out of every receiver in this class, and he only played 11 games. So he's experienced, he's big, he's long, he's fast. He's got everything you want as a day 2 receiver.
Brett and EJ of the Bootleg Football Podcast, thank you so much for joining us here on The Evaluation. Please welcome back to the Roundtable, Lindsay Rhodes of SūmerSports.
I mean, holy heck. This is like being a kid at Disneyland for a draft nerd like myself to be able to sit at a table with you two and you as well and talk a little bit about what goes into this process. I just want to point out for a quick second, what's so cool about this show is that you guys spend your entire life keeping these things secrets, right? Like the people who sit in those chairs guard everything like it is a state secret. And now we get to hear your thoughts on the whole process.
Absolutely. Let's start it off. Simply put, how do you define an underdog?
I don't think scouts talk in those terms. It was more about where you ended up with a draft grade. And once you got into that kind of late draftable priority free agent bucket, that's what I think the fans would call an underdog. We were talking about them because we cared about those guys as much, if not more, than the first round guys. And it was a big deal to find somebody who was an undrafted free agent who makes your team. So the things you might hear in a front office about these kind of guys, he's a try-hard, tough guy. That means he was a highly productive guy and you really like him, but you don't think he has the traits. Or the other end of the spectrum, you might hear, that's an underwear Olympic guy, which means he was a height, weight, speed guy. The opposite, but he doesn't have any production. He's not a good football player. So guys fall through the cracks for whatever reason, but I don't know. I don't really think we talked about, hey, who's the underdog we're going to go find?
Yeah, I would say the one thing, Lindsay and E, when you're in the process, we don't really look at them in terms of underdog terms. Now, eventually, as time plays out, we'll see guys that came from wherever, and they'll look like you can say an underdog story. Like Kurt Warner is like the
American underdog.
All-time story.
Oh, and really, when you look at his story, you can look back on the narrative. But as an evaluator, we're probably like, our scouts are like, hey, whether he's a late rounder, a priority free agent, like we look at him as the parts and the pieces. So we don't really sort of personify him in that sense. But that's what we do, because we're constantly striving to be accurate, and you mentioned before, Lindsay, like you see a lot of the stuff behind the scenes stuff. Well, you never see anybody go behind the scenes in draft meetings because there's so much information that's so critical to what we do that, and again, it's a very subjective process that we don't want to let that information out. So.
One of the things that I do notice sometimes in conversations about players, when you hear fans talk about them, I think that there is a bias that goes towards the memorable plays, whether it's a really memorable good play or a really memorable bad play. And so sometimes if you make a high leverage play, the fan could say, that player's great. Okay, but what happens on the plays where you don't notice him? And is he the reason that you're not noticing him? Is he loafing on the play? Is he unable to do a specific thing consistently? And these types of tools help you do that because they're literally looking at every frame of every snap of every game.
And so much of what we do, like from the scouting standpoint, we watch tape and we train our eye. Like that's what we end up doing. We sort of like, and what happens is, you're human, so you're going to be impressed by things. Like, and sometimes I always tell scouts, hey, if you're tired or you're not focused, like, literally, you can watch a tape, and if you're not in the right mindset or you're tired, you almost have to go back and watch the tape all over again. Or go back and if you self-scout yourself where you make mistakes on guys, you either get overly high on something or overly negative on something. And you don't want analytics to bleed into the subjective scouting part, but you want to have it as a tool to use both. So in essence, you sort of run them parallel, and then you sort of integrate when you're like, hey, you may want to go revisit this. You know, we thought this was good, but maybe in the analytics it shows like this is either we've undervalued them or we've overvalued them.
GMs have to evaluate the evaluators, okay? And that includes the AI piece, it includes all your cross checks, but it starts with yourself. I went back and looked at 5 years of my own grades, okay? And I made it a summer project, and I was like, I kept done it, and I was like, wow. Apparently, I really like boundary corners that can't run. Okay, first of all, that's the first group. And then even when I was a GM, I had to be really careful because I like offensive linemen that'll move you off the line of scrimmage, not just position guys that'll play with a little bit of leverage and get in your way and turn their asses. I want guys to bend and go and move. And there were some guys, like I'll give you a name, Zach Frazier, a couple years ago coming out of West Virginia. I loved his feet, loved his ability to get in position, but I questioned, and I was tough on him in my grade. He's not moving. Then he goes in and he's rookie, you know, he's the center rookie of the year, and he's an all-pro. And then I go back and watch Steeler tape now, and he's moving people way off the line. And so that's a long way of saying that all of this has to tie together. I think Mike's 100% right with evaluating all the people that do the evaluations, but we also have to be careful with the AI as to how we use this brand new exciting tool.
So I had a question about character. A lot of these underdogs become underdogs because of character issues. How do you, as scouts, parse out where that line is and how to say, no, this is a guy that's undraftable, or this is a guy that we think we can mentor or work with?
I think there's two ways to look at this. Where you look at the kid's character, and all 32 buildings are going to interpret it a little bit differently. You can take him off your board. You can say our grade on him is effectively, he's a second-round guy. But we're not going to take that kind of risk in the second round. If he gets to day 3 and climbs into the 4th and 5th round, we'll take him on a discount. Or, guess what? We did our information, we did our reviews, and we're good with this kid. Let's roll. Does that make sense? That cover it?
Yep. I would say the thing, just to echo what Mike just said, when you go into the character part of guys, a lot of characters sort of whether the guy is going to fulfill his potential or not. And the problem sometimes with guys that have character issues, and it depends what the issue is. It could be lack of work ethic, it could be lack of mental toughness, it could be off the field decisions that are, or it could be sometimes drug or substance abuse issues. And so you have to kind of weigh all those things. And the difficult thing is when you get, if you can take chances on guys, but you have to have a strong locker room that will hopefully, create an environment which will keep the player in a good place. The problem ends up being, and this is maybe more so as a GM, and maybe the lower level of people, Mike's probably experienced this a little bit, is when you have these issues and they become distractions, and you spend all this time trying to prop up, support, whatever, and distractions are really bad because it affects your locker room. It affects your focus on all the stuff you have to do. But there's sort of, it's a pros and cons. Like you weigh it, and if there's a certain place you either feel, I don't want to mess with this, you pass and move on to somebody else, or you say, hey, at a certain place and time, you will take a chance on a player like that.
Do you two have any instances, any personal stories of finding an underdog or an underdog that you really pushed for who ended up making you look really good?
Like Arian Foster would probably be the one that would come to mind, only because literally we took a guy that was a college free agent, and I had done the work on him, and a lot of other people in the room did too. It wasn't just me only. But I'd watched the junior tape where he ran for, did very well. And then when he eventually, the first year, obviously was, like I said, he played a little bit late in the year and did well. But then the next year, he is the #1 rushing running back, and a key catalyst in our offense and really fit what we did. But those are the things that eventually when you start stacking and stacking and stacking, and Mike probably can allude to this too, like when you land Maxx in the fourth round, I mean, that's eventually becomes a truly impactful player for you. That's what drives you,
It's intriguing because that first draft where we got Maxx, which became a centerpiece, obviously. Now, the guys that made the team in 19 became the focal point of the guys that drove us to the playoffs in 21. But Maxx was in the fourth round. Hunter Renfrow was in the fifth round. He had over 100 catches that year, and we traded up to get him in the fifth because I think it was Miami wanted him. So we get them back to back, okay? And then in undrafted free agency, which I can't even tell you guys what a frenzy that is. But it's so important to your organization to get this new blood in. And that year we had 4 undrafted free agents make the team, partly because we weren't very good, but 3 of them ended up ultimately being Pro Bowlers. Okay, which is almost unheard of. And that's what you're looking for, is because when you miss early, like we did, okay, we missed on Cleve Ferrell and we hit on Maxx Crosby, same draft. The end of the day, all of a sudden, we're bringing Keyshawn Nixon in as a free agent. He's now the all-pro kick returner in Green Bay. He starts at nickel and outside for them. A.J. Cole is a Pro Bowl punter. Alec Ingold is the captain in Miami and another Pro Bowler. Andre James is the starting center. These are 4 starters we got outside of the draft on a minimum salary. And I only bring those names up because that's the point. You're driving a salary cap, and you're going to have dead cap money, and you're going to have all kinds of other things. To Mike's point a little bit earlier, you need those guys to balance that out.
I could do this with you guys all day, but Lindsay, you have something for us?
Yep, there's more data, more information about how we kind of find these underdogs in the numbers. Here are the stats in the shadows.
A tale of underdogs is a tale of overcoming. But more importantly, it's about the stats in the shadows that show us who is really built for the big stage. Once upon a time, there were 2 wide receivers, one drafted in 2022, the other in 2025, both day 3 picks because of a flaw that pushed them deeply into the shadows. The 2022 pick struggled to stay on the field, playing 10 or more games only once in 4 seasons. Prototype build, intriguing traits, but constant injuries. The 2025 pick was the opposite. 11 plus games in 5 straight seasons, but only 5'10" and 155 pounds. Tough kid, tiny frame, yet they shared the things that mattered. Both transferred and produced at a similar level despite the competition, posting key predictive metrics that quietly signaled NFL viability. They each posted about a 20% target share in their platform year, good for the 85th percentile. And they both crushed yards per route run, 2.5 for the 2025 prospect and an absurd 3.5 for the 2022 prospect. So what happened to him? The 2022 pick, Puka Nacua, became an All-Pro. Remember that yards per route run figure? He posted it in the NFL. Harder competition, same monster. The 2025 pick, Tez Johnson, became a surprise rookie contributor, posting 5 touchdowns and a starter-level pass route SūmerSport. So what's the takeaway here? The gems are out there, and the numbers, the ones hidden in the shadows, can help us find them before anyone else does.
I think that's so fascinating, thinking about those outliers who have really done a phenomenal job on the next level.
I mean, Puka, what? How did that happen, right? Like, now he's arguably the best wide receiver in the league. But Tez Johnson was my guy last year all in the draft because Sam and I are on the same page in terms of what numbers we're looking for. I think it's really interesting that Tampa Bay took him and Emeka, right? Like, that they just loaded up that wide receiver room. Toward the end of the draft, I was like, somebody take Tez, somebody do it. And then it was there. And I was like, he's going to get buried on the depth chart. And then,
no, Evans, that's because Evans is 100 years old, and the number 2 guy from Penn State is always hurt. So they had to get it. I mean, that's simple.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to our team at SūmerSports. Thank you to Maxx Crosby. And thank you to the gentlemen at the Bootleg Football Podcast. As always, draft night is loud, but evaluations are quiet. And we live in the quiet. Until next time.